Welcome to the CRM ZEN Show, where we talk about all things Zoho. This is episode 113, Farm to Desktop, recorded on September 25th, 2020 from Zenatta Consulting. I'm Brett Martin.
And I'm Tyler Colt, and let's get right on into the news.
Yeah, so we talked about this last week, but the official announcement finally came. The Zoho Mail IMAP client is live. I've been using it this week, and I'm liking it. It's working extremely well.
Yeah, and so the IMAP integration is basically a way to use Zoho Mail as your mail client, even if your mail is still hosted elsewhere, like over on Outlook or Gmail. So it kind of gives you a way to take a look at Zoho Mail and actually start routing, your communication through there without actually making the full migration of all the MX records.
Yeah, and I'm deciding that the widgets outweigh the so, there's pluses and minuses to Gmail and Zoho Mail. I love the way Gmail will automatically categorize all of your promotions and all the social posts and, your updates, and then kind of just keep your inbox real clean. At the same time, it doesn't have nearly the number of widgets and extensions and plugins and benefits that if you're living in the Zoho ecosystem, access to desk, access to books, access to CRM right from an email, it's hard to beat. So I think I just have to go through the painful process now of basically setting up all of the filters to basically kind of recreate what Google Mail creates by just kind of putting things in different buckets when they come in. But I think I'm going to do that for about an hour and a half, and then I'll be, probably be 100% on Zoho Mail at that point in time, which will be a good thing.
And so again, as you do go to set this up, one little oddity is if you are integrating with Gmail, it's going to identify Zoho Mail as a less secure app. Yes. Even though they are using all the best practices for authentication, I think it's just a new connection for Gmail to support. So expect that you'll need to adjust that setting and enable connections for less secure apps in order to get this set up if you are running Gmail as your primary mail client.
Yeah, and that's not, like you say, it's not a Zoho thing. There are so many apps that Google looks at and says they're less secure apps, and they're not. It's just, evidently the signing authorities aren't correct or something like that. But it's a good thing. I mean, I like the application. I think we have one client that was getting some really odd behavior. It was kind of just like pulling in the title on the first line, but it looked like he was getting it. I'm not sure what the deal was there, but hopefully.
Yeah, I'm sure there's a couple extra kinks to work out as this did just recently come through. So, if you have any bugs, feel free to, forward them over to Zoho and they'll get you sorted out.
Yeah, but I'm happy to see that launched. And then this was a slow news week, but we did have some other interesting things. Zoho Backstage now has page level permissions for events. So if you're not familiar, Backstage is like an Eventbrite. It allows you to completely run your events online, not whether they're online events or whether they're in-person events. You've got tickets, you've got badges. We've talked about this. It does everything. And it also creates your microsite for you. So I'm having an event. Here's all about my event. Here's where you can buy the tickets. Well, prior to this update, when you built your microsite, it was just a public site. There was kind of nothing like, okay, once I'm registered, I have different access to different things. So they've changed that now, and you've got this full page level security. So good thing.
Yeah, and so it's kind of nice, you've got a couple different types of access. So, you can define an element as public where anyone can see it. You can allow only logged in people to see certain other elements. And then lastly, you can allow only registered ticket holders to see specific elements of the microsite. And on the ticket holder piece, it kind of goes a level deeper where you could say, maybe if you hold a VIP ticket, you can see this other specific section of the microsite. So you can actually build a little bit of exclusivity into the site, based on what type of ticket a certain person may have.
I think that's it's great. I mean, I really like this application and what they've done with the online side now. It's great. One of the only issue I've got with Backstage now is now that they're doing virtual events, they're really running off of that meeting and Showtime recording engine, and the recording on this is basically the same. It's using the same thing. So a little tough on the recording of events here. So you might want to use a third-party tool if you're going to use this for recording your events. But as a straight up application for running your events, it's good stuff. All right, Tyler. So this is happening kind of quickly. So OAuth tokens auth tokens will no longer be supported in Deluge. All Zoho integration will only support OAuth authentication. This, by the way, just isn't Deluge. It's Desk. It's everywhere. They're all deprecating at certain times. They appear to all be deprecating this year, though. This specific Deluge deprecation, Indian users September 30th, so we're talking in 5 days. Canadian EU and Canadian users October 30th, and the US gets a little bit of a reprieve till November 30th. But it appears that auth tokens are gone. Long live OAuth. That's going to really be the only way to do this kind of authentication.
Yep, and though the dates are coming up quickly, they've definitely been notifying and pushing everyone that you need to be setting these things up through OAuth. It's kind of the new best practice for security, and it basically allows your app that you're connecting to Zoho to effectively make changes as a logged in user, rather than it just having like a static code or an auth token that allows it to make those updates.
Yeah, and we talked about this being a bit of a slow news week, so we're kind of duplicating another story here as well. So in mobile app news, but I liked this one. So Bigin for iOS 14 enhancement guide, and this has been all over the news this week. Not Bigin, but basically how to really trick out your iOS 14 iPad and iPhone home screens with widgets and custom icons and all sorts of stuff. And this gives you a nice little step-by-step guide. So it's kind of taking you through the entire process here of what a screen can look like, and then how you do it. You have to use series shortcuts and how to actually build those overall shortcuts, and then to wind it down, and then give all the various views and how to get them from onto your home screen, because it's not as simple as Android, which is kind of crazy. I mean, but it's interesting, and that Apple's added all of these widgets, and they are kind of cool, but man, you got to jump through some hoops to get some of these things on your screen. And so it's anyway, nice job here, kind of giving you the step-by-step guide on how to lay it out and some of the new features in iOS. So way to go, Bigin. I still haven't seen anything for CRM yet, but hopefully soon.
Yeah, hopefully sooner than later.
It's crazy. Have you done anything with your phone yet? Have you tricked it out? Done any of these?
No, not yet. I mean, I'm still running an old iPhone 6S or
Okay.
6S. So I'm a little hesitant to make the update. Every now and then, once you hit a certain age with these phones and you roll to the new iOS, that battery life really seems to tank. So I'm waiting for now until
it's going to be time. It's going to be time. Well, iPhone 12 should be out here in a couple of weeks. So I don't know. I think it's going to be time. That's a big upgrade, waiting 6 generations. Maybe that's it. You have to wait till it doubles. So if you get an iPhone 12 this year, you have to wait for an iPhone 24 before you can upgrade again. That'll be it. All righty, and that brings us to our implementation of the week. What do we got, Tyler?
Yeah, so this one was kind of a patch solution for a piece of functionality that one of our clients needed over in Zoho Books. So this was basically a little script to simulate the progress billing process that you're able to run in, something like QuickBooks or Xero. So basically what progress billing is, you may have a sales order, right, that is created from an estimate. So, you've agreed on all the pricing with the customer, and, you know all your different line items that are going to be sold. But, if you're running something like a, hardware technology implementation company, you'd probably be invoicing these out as progress bills. So, when we've put together 20% of the project, we send an invoice for 20% of that sales order. This is pre-built over in QuickBooks, right, where you can kind of turn on progress billing, and then it gives you a little prompt to add this percentage. But nothing quite like that has been rolled out for Zoho Books yet. So what we did is we basically created a little custom field inside of the invoice record, and we called that the progress percentage. And when an invoice is saved with that value filled in, we run a little script that will reference the sales order line items and all the quantities from those, calculate the new quantities, based on this percentage, and then write those quantities to the matching line items over in the invoice. So the advantage of doing it that way, and the reason that we pulled it directly from the sales order, is so that you don't have to do any mental math on the fly. So, if I've created one 50% invoice for a sales order, well, the next invoice that I create is going to default to the other 50% of those quantities. So by standardizing that every time you make one, it's just going to pull directly from the sales order, kind of allows us to make that a seamless process. And then once you've created all these different progress build invoices, the partially invoiced quantities roll up to that sales order and become visible there. So that when I go to invoice it again, I can see, we've already invoiced 75% of this. So I'll make this last invoice for the remaining 25.
So I missed this. Was this done for the client we had a conversation with earlier in the week where we were trying to
Separate client
solve?
for this build out right now.
Okay. All right. This might work for that, though. That's interesting. Good
Yeah,
stuff.
it's all about how you need to display it as well. So there's some,
right.
We can't always tweak the exact format of like the sales order invoice templates and the display there. So sometimes in certain industries, you may need a specific look and feel that you're still not able to replicate with this, but this gets kind of the function of the progress billing taken care of in books.
Slick.
For the record, I would still love them to roll this out as an official piece of functionality, because we've been asked about this multiple times, and we've just now kind of figured out the secret sauce to actually run this script. But, with anything in your accounting system, default functionality is much better than something custom, right? Because it is super, super important that you never have a bug, or, if anything changes, right, you're still able to run these processes. So would still love to see Zoho put out a real progress billing solution, but as kind of a stopgap, this will definitely get the job done.
Yeah, good stuff. And they do. And that's one of the things, Zoho Books sits in that maybe section of our, yes, maybe, no recommendation. And it's only for just a few little things like this. It seems like QuickBooks has plugins or functionality built for virtually every industry. And the construction industry needs progress billing, right?
Yep.
And there's all these different ones, and you kind of run across it. And it's like, okay, this is kind of a little gotcha. And that's the only reason really that, Zoho Books is in that maybe category. Otherwise, I think it'd be up top. And, I don't know now with the marketplace, doing what we did here, do you think is it possible maybe to write a Zoho Books marketplace app that can add functionality? I don't know.
Well, the trick is you'd need a pop-up, right, to actually pop up as you're creating these invoices, which sometimes can be kind of hard to deploy, to actually get the custom HTML on the page, not in the form of a widget, but in the form of like a prompt. That could be a little bit tricky, but it could be done.
Yeah, interesting. All righty, and let's move on now to our reads of the week. So a really cool one here. I love this DIGINOMICA site. I think they're getting paid to write about Zoho, because they write about Zoho a lot, but I'm not sure. But they definitely have instituted coverage on Zoho. And, we've talked about this before, how Sridhar Vimbu, the CEO of Zoho, moved out to the country outside Chennai, and he's living in a little village, and he's working from there, and he's got high-speed Wi-Fi. And, the thought was, hey, with COVID, he then instituted this, well, let's do all of this rural, getting people back to the land thing and working in other cities. Turns out that wasn't the case. And this is a great little article, Zoho, the tech company that's going back to the land. It turns out in January, he set out to implement this game plan. And I guess a lot of people thought it was a far-fetched idea, but that was all pre-COVID, and kind of how those times have changed. And then Raju Vignesa, who's the chief evangelist over at Zoho, we've often talked about how Zoho bought this campus in Austin, Texas with, it was 100 acres. Then they added 260 more acres to it. And it's a 360 acre headquarter that they're breaking ground on and building. But I guess the first literal breaking of ground they did on this is they started growing crops on it and allowing people to bring their families and children so they could learn how to farm and grow food. And it just, it's an interesting article about, does this accelerate the move from big cities to spreading people out to giving people land, to having more room, and kind of getting back to that kind of thing. It's an interesting read, but I'll tell you what, I think if more people could provide sustenance for themselves with little gardens and things, it's not necessarily a horrible thing.
Yeah, and I think it is interesting, and we were talking about this a little bit before the show, but as cloud tech has gotten better and better, and then with COVID as kind of a forcing factor where people have had to switch to remote, kind of opens up the option that maybe we don't need to go back fully to, everyone being in the office all the time. Because you have a lot of these big cities in the US where there's just an insane demand for housing, an insane kind of crunch on all the infrastructure as everyone's had to urbanize over the past little while here. And maybe this could be kind of a turning point where some of these companies start to spread back out a little bit.
Yeah, I mean, and they're just expanding this, Tyler. They've got 6 new farm offices in India, and they've actually got, they've got a vice president of marketing, or a director of marketing, director of sales, and a director of farming. So it's a great, I love it. Honestly, I think it's a great thing. And this is a really nice article. So, we like to throw things in here so you can kind of get a grip on Zoho's corporate culture and the people behind it. And I think this is a really good read. All right. And then another one of my favorite subjects. This is from HubSpot. We actually have not had a HubSpot article in weeks. We've been doing good finding other articles that kind of talk about this. But this one is 4 key signs your sales and marketing team aren't aligned. I would put number 1 with a bullet here. Unless you have a VP of sales and marketing, your sales and marketing teams aren't aligned, because we talk about this all the time. But this kind of points out, Tyler, we've always talked about this on the show, and my theory that you need to have one head over both departments, but this is kind of why. And, he's got the 4 reasons here. Your marketing team, your marketing department only cares about market qualified leads. You don't have consistent interdepartmental syncs to address the results of planned campaigns. Your marketers never ask, what can I do to make the sales process easier for you? And your sales department creates and uses its own content exclusively. I don't know. I guess these would definitely be 4 signs that you're misaligned, but it does just point out the fact that it's so nice to have a completely unified sales department, marketing department, walking in lockstep, supporting each other and communicating with each other. And, that's one of the things Zoho can allow you to do. You get all the marketing that's going on there, all the sales. They're working together with each other, and you really can get that cohesive plan moving forward for your sales organization. Anyway, I found this to be a pretty good article.
Yeah, and it kind of touches on a couple key things. I like how they represent that gap in the goal between the two. So really, like, if your marketing department is only concerned about getting people to a certain campaign score, right, where they've opened a certain amount of emails and now they're an MQL, well, that's not really the same goal, or even close to the same goal that the sales team is going after, which is, an actual closed won sale. So it's kind of a common thing that'll take place where you just end up having these different priorities in 2 teams that should be, working in lockstep.
Yeah, and it's kind of interesting. We talk to a lot of companies, and there can be a real hang up sometimes around, oh, when's it an MQL? When's it an SQL? And, people get all tied up in this. And, I think one of the things we try to do is we try to say, well, what's your sales process, right? Let's go through every single step of the way from lead all the way down. And then we can kind of easily define when these maybe cross that gap from one to the other and when the handoffs occur. And so, interesting article. If you have the time, give it a read. All right. And that brings us to what's new over at Zenatta.com. Got a new blog this week. Talked about Backstage earlier. It's a great one on basically managing events from home with Zoho Backstage. We've kind of talked about how Zoho's Backstage has gone virtual and how you can set up your virtual events and run your virtual events. And you've got this is a step-by-step guide on how to go ahead and do that. Set it up, get your virtual event, live stream it, promote it, do the entire thing. We've got a lot of guides on Zoho Backstage in here as well. So really worth taking a look at, and a good article. Thanks to the team for putting that together. Also, we've got our guides. We found a couple more from Zoho this week. Getting your sales reps to love CRM. I don't know, bribery, but really it's something we talk about all the time, Tyler. It's one of our goals at Zenatta. It's right on our the front page of our website is, uh, building CRMs that your salespeople will not only use, but they'll love them and they'll work with them. And so here's a little step-by-step guide, 12 pages, got some great tips in it as well. And then using live chat to grow your business. So this is a Zoho Cliq guide not Cliq, Sales IQ. And it kind of steps you through the entire process there. This is a much more detailed guide. This is 49 pages of kind of tips and tricks and real world implementation for implementing chat. It doesn't have to apply to Sales IQ. If you're using any chat bot, it's kind of worth taking a look at this as well. So Zoho really does a great job on these guides. Like I say, they're scattered all over the internet. We're trying to find them and bring them back to you here. So there you go. And then that brings us to our application of the week. Tyler, this is just for you, baby.
Well, it's funny because you went out, I think, to find something like this, for me, in essence. And this is actually one that I have used in the past. I've not been using it too much lately, but yeah, it's definitely a nice one. So this is like a little Chrome extension, right, that you can plug into your browser that basically allows you to turn any site that you're looking at into a dark mode site. So it's just going to invert a lot of the colors. Now, every now and then, depending on how the site is set up, I will say you'll get some oddball results. Maybe 1 out of every 25 sites is going to look real funky if you have this on by default when you pull it up. But 9 times out of 10, it's going to give you a really nice dark mode on really any web page that you're on.
Yeah, the app is called Dark Reader, and it's, like I say, Chrome extension. It's fully open source as well. It's over on GitHub, and I've got that link in the show notes as well. And if you're watching on video, it does a nice job. I just took a screen cap of CNN, and quite frankly, I mean, this is a perfect. You would not know. This looks like native dark mode. The way they converted this. So I mean, it's one of those things where I think, if you're into dark mode, this is good. And now, while we talked about it previously, I think one of the titles of a couple shows was Generation Dark Mode, because we talked about it being a generational thing. But honestly, if it's nighttime and I've got my laptop up and I'm trying to do some work and I got the lights out, you want to go into dark mode, otherwise it's a lot easier on your eyes across the board. So pretty cool extension. It's free. Donate to support them if you would like. All right, and that brings us to our tip and trick of the week. This is a little bit of an older one. It's how to hide the submit button on a form in Zoho Creator until basically you fill in a certain field. So you've got a choice. You could say every single field needs to be filled out before I can show the submit button, or this specific field has to be filled out. It's a nice little use case. This tip was from 4 months ago. I kind of had it in back pocket to, throw out here if we actually hadn't produced our own tip of the week, and that was the case. But simple little Deluge script to make it all happen. But have we ever used anything like this, Tyler?
Not really directly in Creator. One thing to highlight with this as well is that they're showing it here for the submit button. In Creator, you can add all different types of buttons on a page. So maybe if you had a button that ran a particular script or triggered a certain process, you could also show and hide that button using this same methodology. So it's not like it's locked just to the standard submit button. You could kind of twist and turn this to show or hide any button on the page based on some criteria.
Yeah, I think a lot of time when you look at these coding tips, they're just the fundamental. It's a basic thing that you can easily extend out to do other things with. So nice tip. Sajal Tani, congratulations. Nice job. You made the show. Good tip, buddy. And all right. And that brings us to the end of the show. But before we go, I want to talk about a couple of cool changes we've got going over here at CRM Zen. So we officially launched a new website for the CRM Zen Show just yesterday. I think it went live. Not all parts of it are there yet, but wanted to point out we're going to have some really cool stuff. So all of the episodes are here now. So all of them have been loaded up here. It turns out we're missing like 3 or 4, but I've got them somewhere. So we got to find those and put them they're from the very beginning. I think episode 1, 2, 3, and 4 are missing when we did this. So we'll get those over in here as well. And then we also have a Zoho News section that we're launching. And if you enjoy the show, the plan is that we're going to kind of really extend this overall coverage. So right now, the way the show's built up and the way we do it is basically Tyler and I on Thursday night scramble around and find all the stories and put them together and create an entire show doc, then review everything Friday morning, load it into the PowerPoint. So if you're watching the YouTube video, it's all there. And then we do the show. But what we're going to do now is, because there's a lot of stuff we leave out, because some of it's just kind of, I don't know, esoteric or doesn't really matter, but there's some interesting news out there. There are a lot of people writing about Zoho. So we're going to use the news feed to kind of just be quick little links to, hey, here's the stories today. Here's what's happening at Zoho. Here's what's going on. And really just kind of make this the central hub for everything you want to find out about Zoho, not just what's going on at the Zoho community website or the Zoho blog, but all of these other sites running about Zoho, we track it all, we follow it all. So we're just going to kind of highlight these people and point you over to their websites to look at what they're writing about. And then I think for us, it's going to make us easier to write the show. We're just going to look back at the last week of postings that were in here. And hopefully there's 20 to 30 a week we get to choose from. And then we're going to go ahead and create the show out of this. So this should become a really good resource for you as well. And then I think we're also then are linking back to the Zenatta blog and the Zenatta resources library. But the really cool thing is I'm looking forward to our Zoho store, Tyler. We got some cool stuff coming here.
Yeah, so we don't know exactly what products we're going to be listing on here yet. We're kind of kicking that around internally, mostly thinking about what products we want for ourselves. If you're watching this on the YouTube channel, you may see there's a little CRM ZEN bathrobe poking its head out there, which is one of the ones in the running here, mostly so that we can wear those while we work remote here.
Yeah, so I think for certain the bathrobes in. I know coffee mugs are in, t-shirts, hoodies, coasters, I think, are what going to be the ones to start with. But it's not just going to be CRM ZEN Show. We're really having some fun with the name itself. So there's some interesting things such as stay calm and carry CRM ZEN. There are various things like that. CRM ZEN AF, that personally is my favorite. We've designed that with little Zoho blocks. I can't wait to see that one come out. We've got quite a few. But the nice thing is this is kind of an independent, we've been running this show. We put it over on Zenatta. Look, Zenatta, that's our consulting company, and we kind of wanted to keep this more independent, put it off to the side so we can do some other things with it. So I'm really excited for this site. I think it's going to be great for everybody and great for the Zoho community, and we hope you feel the same.
And as you'd expect, you can find it over at crmzen.com, just right how it's written out on any of our logos.
Yeah, we never had that one before. We always were saying, come find us over at crmzen.net. So it was kind of nice to get crmzen.com after all these years. And with that, it really is a wrap. So we probably should change this title page as it says right now. So I am going to change this for the next show, everybody. But right now, you can reach us at info@zenatta.com or info@crmzen.com. But we'll get that set up next week. Or you can drop us a line, reach us on Twitter, LinkedIn, Facebook, YouTube, or subscribe to us on our newsletter.
And so with that, have a great week, everybody, and we'll see you next Monday.